Have you ever looked at your finances and just wondered why, no matter how hard you work, you never seem to actually get ahead? Well, it turns out a 250-year-old idea might just hold the answer to that very modern problem. So here's the bottom line right up front. The choice you make between buying a stock and, say, buying a luxury service, well, that's the real difference between building your capital and just burning it. Welcome to the MoniLytics channel, where money meets research. All right, for today's explainer, here's our game plan. We're going to tackle the modern wealth paradox. Then we'll dive into Adam Smith's foundational insight about productive versus unproductive labor. We'll contrast the investor and the spendthrift. And finally, we'll wrap up with a clear blueprint for your own capital. Okay, so let's jump right into that central problem, the modern wealth paradox. You know, we're all taught that if you just work hard, you'll build wealth. But for so many people, that's just not how it plays out. The reality feels more like a constant struggle, where a bigger paycheck doesn't actually lead to more wealth. It's a question that hits home for a lot of us, right? You get a raise, you're putting in the hours, your income is solid, but your actual net worth, it's just not moving. It feels like you're on a financial treadmill, running faster and faster just to stay in the exact same spot. So what's really going on here? Well, believe it or not, the answer might come from an economic principle that's almost 250 years old, penned by the father of modern economics himself. In his massive 1776 book, The Wealth of Nations, Adam Smith wasn't just talking about how countries get rich. He actually laid out a framework for how capital gets built, and it's just as relevant for you and me today as it was for entire nations back then. And here's the absolute key to his whole argument. Building wealth isn't just about how much money you make or even how much you manage to save. It's all about the economic character of your spending. In other words, where your money goes after you've earned it is what truly shapes your financial future. And that brings us to the very core of his thinking, this powerful distinction between what he called productive and unproductive labor. Honestly, understanding this one concept can completely change how you look at every single dollar you spend. So Smith defined productive labor as any work that creates a tangible, sellable thing. Think about a factory worker building a car or a farmer growing crops. This labor creates an asset, something he called a vendable commodity, which is just a fancy way of saying something tangible you can sell. It stores value, it can be used to make more money later, and it adds to our total stock of capital. Now, on the other side, you have unproductive labor. This is any kind of labor where the service is consumed the very moment it's performed. In Smith's day, he was talking about personal servants or actors. Today, think about your Netflix subscription or the Uber ride you took this morning. Now, these services can be awesome, even necessary, but they don't create a tangible asset. Their value, as Smith put it, perishes in the instant of its performance. Let's just break this down side by side. Productive labor creates future value. It's funded by capital. Unproductive labor is consumed right now. It's paid for out of your income. See, Smith's big idea here is that when you pay for productive labor, you're basically turning your cash into a capital asset. But when you pay for unproductive labor, you're just consuming your income. Now, it's really important to get this. This is purely an economic distinction. It is not a moral judgment about which job is better. It's just an analysis of how capital gets created. Okay, so this whole distinction really creates two different types of people, two archetypes that Smith uses to explain why some people and some countries get rich while others stay poor. It's the investor versus the spendthrift. Smith calls the investor the frugal man. This person takes their income and channels it straight into capital by paying for productive hands. By doing this, Smith argues the investor actually becomes a public benefactor because their savings become the very fund that creates jobs and grows the whole economy. The spendthrift, on the other hand, does the exact opposite. They pour their money into immediate consumption, funding what Smith called idle hands. And in doing so, they're essentially destroying capital that could have been used to put productive people to work. And this all leads to one of the most powerful lines in his entire book. Smith writes, "Parsimony, and not industry, is the immediate cause of the increase of capital." Now, what on earth does that mean? Well, industry is your hard work. It creates your income. But parsimony, which is basically strategic saving and investing, that's what actually creates capital. You see, you can't get rich just by earning a lot. You get rich by converting those earnings into capital. So here's the value chain that's so critical to understand. Frugality, being smart with your money, leads to savings. Those savings, when you invest them, become capital. That capital then gets put to work employing productive labor, which in turn creates more tangible stuff, more assets. And that is how not just one person, but an entire society grows its real wealth. The investor's private decision to save has this massive public benefit. So, how can we take this big macroeconomic theory from 250 years ago and actually use it as a blueprint to build our own personal capital today? Well, it really all comes down to this: reevaluating every single dollar you spend through this new lens. You have to ask yourself, is this dollar being turned into a capital asset, like a stock or a piece of a business, something that can generate future income? Or is it just being consumed, spent on an experience that, yeah, it might be great, but it perishes on impact and leaves nothing behind? That is the filter the investor uses to see the world. And so the final question this whole framework leaves us with is a really profound one. When you look at your own spending habits, you have to ask, is my money working to build future value, or is it perishing on impact? The answer to that question might be the single biggest reason you either build real wealth or stay financially stuck. If you found this research valuable, please like the video, subscribe to MoniLytics, and check out the affiliate links in the description to support the channel. And stay tuned for our next deep dive, where we'll be shifting our focus to fixed versus circulating capital, the engine of every millionaire's portfolio.